Hello, my name is Brendan and I am the teacher naturalist at New Jersey Audubon's Nature Center of Cape May. Come on a tour of my magical gardens. I live in an apartment next to a parking lot and a hair salon. All of my gardens are made in containers, so this can be done in any urban setting. Our first stop on our garden tour is on my deck, where I have a miniature garden space made from an upcycled old shoe rack. My boss found this shoe rack in the dumpster, and I stained it, polyurethaned it, and drilled holes in it so that I could set little pots in it. This is where I keep some of my succulents and plants that can stay outside on this shoe rack. You will see many different upcycled container gardens on this tour. This next container garden was an old pond that somebody gave me, which I drilled holes in for drainage and turned into a lily pond. I was able to get some containers that fit on the side of my railing. This is nice because it gives me some privacy when I'm sitting at my table on the porch eating my dinner. It did take me a while to find the right plants to put in there because those little boxes get sun all day long and don't have a lot of space for the roots to go. In order to have a certified wildlife garden, you need to have places where animals can raise young. This nesting box is the perfect addition. Painting a nesting box is the perfect creative outlet for you to add some flair to your garden space and create a good home for birds. Next, we'll take a walk down my stairwell, where you will see that I have a potted plant on almost every step. This is a great way to maximize your space in an urban setting. Just make sure you can get up and down your steps in case of an emergency. Some vegetables that you buy from the store can actually be grown in your garden from scraps. This celery plant was used in cooking, and I put the base in some water where it developed roots. I then transferred it to this pot. The container that these marigolds are in was upcycled from a broken old crate. I put some landscape fabric along the bottom to hold the soil and then planted the seeds. Water is essential for all living things and an important aspect for a certified wildlife garden area. You can create a bird bath just by placing a shallow dish like this one used to collect the water under a planter. It's the perfect space for birds to come get a drink or take a bath. Just make sure that you change the water regularly so mosquitoes don't use it. We are growing a lot of food for ourselves in our gardens, but there are going to be plenty of tomatoes for some other animals if they come and visit our garden. Food is an essential part of the certified wildlife garden. We have added many native plants to our gardenscape as well, like this blue mist flower. I used an upcycled tire which I spray painted, put chicken wire and landscape fabric on the bottom, and it became the perfect planter. Next we see our pepper bush, but under the stairs behind this plant we have some driftwood that I've collected from the beach. That provides a nice shelter for little animals if they come and visit our garden. One cool way to practice vertical gardening is to use an old shipping pallet as a base for your plants. Again, by using chicken wire and landscape fabric around the back, you're able to create a space that plants can stick their roots in and grow out of. I have cucumbers, pumpkins, and lettuce growing out of my vertical container garden. I love finding new ways to make garden containers, like finding this old hose wrapping station in the dumpster. I flipped it upside down and attached it together so that it would be a base for our coral honeysuckle. And now we come to my favorite part of our gardens, my snake planter. I went to a local mechanic and picked up 4 old tires and transformed them into containers like I mentioned before. This adds a fun and whimsical aspect to our backyard and will provide us with over 100 tomatoes. Aside from our different fruits in the garden, we also make sure we have host plants for different caterpillars, like fennel. The black swallowtail caterpillar needs fennel and other plants in the same family to eat in its larval stage. I love finding inventive ways to make containers where it doesn't cost me a fortune. At the Nature Center of Cape May, we recycle barrels from the marina by cutting them into thirds and using them as planters. It is hard to imagine all of these marigolds came from just a few seeds I planted last year. We have been seeing many insects visiting our gardens because of the amount of flowers we have. Pollen is another example of a great food source for your certified wildlife garden. One great sustainable practice that you can do anywhere is composting. I keep a small takeout jar in our kitchen where I place eggshells, coffee grounds, and scraps of fruits and vegetables. When it is full, I bring it down the stairs to our compost bin, which I made out of an old Rubbermaid container. There it will decompose and create nutrient-dense soil that I can use to help my plants next year. I drilled some holes in the side of the bin and I added worms to help the process along. They are very happy with the food source as they leave behind castings, a fancy name for worm excretions, and they keep reproducing and laying eggs. Some other small invertebrates have made their way to the bin, but it helps build my little underground community. It was important to have the right ratio of carbon and nitrogen in the bin, which is around 30:1 by weight. Carbon comes from the dried leaves, egg cartons, and other pieces of cardboard. The nitrogen comes from the food scraps. Always be sure to add lots of cardboard or dried leaves. Next year, I will add some of this great soil to my pots to help give my plants an added boost. One last project I'd like to show you is an upcycled table I bought from a thrift shop. By mosaicing it with stained glass, grouting it, pouring resin, and adding some weatherproof paint, it gave the table an amazing glow up that saved it from the landfill. In order to certify my garden with the National Wildlife Federation's Garden for Wildlife program, I need to have 3 food sources, which include seeds from flowers, pollen, and other fruits. My habitat needs 1 water source like the small bird bath. Wildlife needs at least 2 places to find shelter from weather and predators, like a cave area under my snake planter, or in the dense tomato plants coming out of it, or under the stairs in the driftwood brush pile. You need at least 2 places for wildlife to engage in courtship behavior, mate, and raise their young, like in my nesting box, or planting host plants for caterpillars like fennel. You also need to employ sustainable practices such as composting and using native plants. Upcycling old containers into new ones that create green space is always a way to be more sustainable. I hope you enjoyed my garden tour and learned how you can create a garden for wildlife even in the middle of an urban landscape.